Howdy folks, this is the Bluecollar Piper. I'm currently, we're gonna do a episode, another installment of the Bluecollar Piper's Tips. But before we do that, I'm gonna do a little housekeeping. I'm currently smoking my clay tavern style modified cutty thing pipe that I made myself. Well, of one of the blends that Mark, mknchng, was kind enough to hook me up with. He hooked me up with 4 samples. He hooked me up with some rather wonderful Sam Goet dark oak scented, some Mac Burns Plum Cake, some 4th Generation 1957, and some GOP's Montgomery. This is what I'm smoking right now. Excellent, excellent Virginia. If you ain't tried the Montgomery from GOP's and you're a Virginia lover, you really should. Okay. Now, I'm going to try to get a lot of information in as quickly as possible. The subject for tonight is terms as they relate, terminology as it relates to pipe tobacco. And I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff. I'm going to try to go through it as quick as possible. So I'm going to try to keep this short, but if it gets a little long, you may want to step out. But for you guys who are interested and maybe not know all this terminology, hope you guys find this useful. Tamping with my Georgia Brown. You have to excuse my hands. Had a rough day at work today. Okay. First the cuts. Now, most of you guys are familiar with ribbon cuts, and then they come in fine, medium, and broad. The differences in the thickness affects how fast it burns. Also, affects the mildness or body of the smoke. Shag is a real fine, super fine ribbon, and can be almost like hair-like. If you take a ribbon and cut it really broad and then break it up into chunks, you end up with like a chopped or potpourri-ish like consistency. Also burns really well. Makes it easier for packing too. Then of course we get into plugs. Now plug is a pressed tobacco. Usually pressed into big blocks, and then the blocks are sliced into cubes that, or like rectangular box-shaped things that are. That's how you get them, and you have to slice them off yourself and do whatever you want to with them after that. If the plugs are taken in mechanically sliced, really super thin, you get what's called flakes or slices. Now, a flake was predominantly used in England, the term flake, while slices were more used in America. But they since intermingled, so they're basically the same term. Now, the factory can take that flake and they can partially break it down. Then you get what's called a broken flake. Makes it a little easier for those who don't fold and stuff, and it makes it a little more complicated for those of us who really do like to fold and stuff. If you take a flake and you cross-cut it really fine, and you give it a slight rub, it turns into little cubes, and you get cube cut. The term ready rubbed comes from where they press it into a plug, cut it into a flake, and then they rub it out almost completely, and it's kind of like a really choppy looking ribbon, but not as smooth cut as a ribbon. The rope basically is where they twist the tobacco into a thick rope and they let it dry like that, and you basically will slice it off into coins, and you'll either rub those out or maybe you'll just shove the coins right into your pipe, which is how I usually do it. I haven't done a rope yet, but I have done medallions, which leads us to our next one, which are ropes that usually have like cores made out of Cavendish or Perique or something special like that, and they're just like a high-end rope, and then they pre-slice them into the coins for you. You get these nice medallions, and that's pretty much most all the ways you're going to get tobacco. I'm sure there's some creative ways, like Solani makes flakes that are like a yard long. They're crazy, but very cool. Now we're going to get into processes. Now processes, and some of these might kind of throw you off. Processes can be done to a lot of different kinds of tobacco. They're not tobacco types. Cavendish, for example. Cavendish is a process that's either done to Virginias or Burleys. Now, if they take it and they apply pressure to it and they apply steam or heat to it, it changes the characteristic of the tobacco, making it milder, lowering its nicotine content, and slightly sweetening it. If it's done, if it has a lot of heat added to it, the tobacco will actually blacken, and that's where you get black Cavendish from. This can be either Virginia or Burley, depending on the characteristics that the tobacco manufacturer is looking for. They also tend to be more aromatic naturally, without having to be flavored, but flavorings can be added to them. Flue cured. Now, once a tobacco has been color cured in the air, they put them into a special barn where they build a little fire and they kind of smoke it a little bit, and it creates a flue cure. The smoked tobacco creates a kind of flue curing. It's not like Latakia. Well, Latakia is actually regular oriental leaf that goes into a small building and a large fire is built in the middle using a specific woods to create a kind of smoke. And that's where Latakia comes from. But in and of itself, Latakia is not like a leaf that grows out of the ground. Air curing, basically you hang it up until it's the right color and you've air cured it. Dark firing. Now dark firing, people think dark fired is dark fired. Well, dark fired could be Virginia or Burley. And a perfect example would be, I believe Stonehaven uses a dark fired Virginia. And what they do basically is they build a fire underneath a big iron plate, and then they lay the tobacco on it, and then turn it, and they keep flipping it over until the tobacco literally turns pitch black. It burns the tobacco, it cooks the tobacco, it doesn't burn it. And that's where you get dark fired. And now if you hear the term dark fired, it could be Virginia or Burley, from just about anywhere. If you hear dark fired Kentucky, then that uses a specific kind of Kentucky Burley that is a little more robust than standard Tennessee Burley. Let's see, casings. What is casing? GLP said it. Most anybody who's in the know and blending knows it. All pipe tobacco is cased with something. It's the mix that goes in before the tobacco becomes pipe tobacco. Basically, it's usually anti-molds, certain kinds of smoke enhancers, smoking quality enhancers, and usually some kind of sweetener. Just a no flavor sweetener, like it might be just a little bit of brown sugar and water, it might be a simple molasses and water, but normally there's always a casing of some sort. All tobaccos have casings. However, what separates aromatics from non-aromatics is the topping. Toppings are added after the tobacco is processed. Say you've got a nice plug of Virginia and you want it to be a nice aromatic with citrus flavors. So what you'll do is you'll basically end up chopping up the plug, doing whatever you're going to do to it to get it to its cut, and then once it's in its cut form, you spritz it with whatever you're going to top it with, which normally can be flavorings, extra sweeteners if you need them. Excuse me a minute. Anything like that. Vanilla is a topping. Caramel is a topping. Citrus is a topping. All these are toppings, and toppings more so present in the top note or the aroma than it does in the palate, in the lower palate. The lower palate only picks up things like sweet, sour, bitter, salty, stuff like that, where flavor comes from the top note. Together it creates a medium note, and that medium note is basically what the final outcome of the overall flavor experience of the tobacco is. So if you put a top note on a topping on something, you're giving it a new aromatic experience, which matched with a sweetness or whatever the base tobacco with its casing might have, then it creates the piping experience. usually anything that, as far as I'm concerned, anything that's pretty much topped is an aromatic. Anything that's not topped is usually a non-aromatic. Now that's not a die-hard rule, but that's a pretty good general to go by. Finally is aging. Certain burleys, certain Virginias, before they become processed, before they go through their processing, are aged intentionally. Certain blends, like Perique, are actually aged in the processing. Perique has to be fermented, so once it's in the fermentation barrel and it's had its pressure applied and its heat's there and it's ready to go, it has to sit in that barrel for no less than a year. So, yeah. And that's all we're going to cover this time around. I might do a part 2 later on. We'll get into the specifics of some of the more common blends, or more common types of tobacco, like the differences between Red Virginia and Bright Virginia, and the differences in some of the Burleys, and the differences in some of the more common Cavendishes, and kind of what makes Perique and stuff like that. So, at that, we've been doing this for about 11 minutes. I'm going to knock it off and let you guys have a great evening. Y'all have a good one.